and it's really nice to see all of you. And I know I speak for the rest of the Symposium board in saying that we really miss seeing you all in person. And even though I'm sure all of us have this love-hate relationship with Zoom, we are extremely grateful to be able to continue our lecture series on Zoom. Anyway, so today's speakers. Let me introduce the League of Women Voters first. They say that democracy is not a spectator sport. And the League of Women Voters is one of the most active organizations dedicated to providing voters with nonpartisan election information through voter guides, as well as candidate forums and debates. And the League of Women Voters was started around the 1920s when women first got the vote. It was felt that if women were going to start voting, they should know what voting is all about. And there's a quote that appeared in the newspapers around that time, which best describes what the League is all about. So this was back in the early 1900s. It was one of the first elections in which women voted. And one of the shrewdest politicians in the Pacific Northwest was studying ward by ward and precinct by precinct the returns of an election, at which many thousands of women had cast ballots. This politician knew the campaign work that had been done in each precinct and each ward, and he also knew the class of voters therein. So for nearly 2 hours, he pored over the figures, and at the end of that time, he tilted back his hat, turned to a number of his friends and said, "The women paid no attention whatever to the newspapers, to the campaign literature, to what our workers said to them. The women went out, they studied the situation for themselves, and they voted as they pleased. The women have revolutionized politics." So to me, that's what the League of Women Voters is all about. It's not about listening to propaganda. It's not about listening to, they go out and they study the issues on their own. And that's the kind of presentation you'll hear today. So now let me introduce our speakers. So Leona Judson. Leona, why don't you wave your hand so folks can see you? Now, Leona looks like an ordinary person. I can assure you she's not. Leona is the chairperson of the League of Women Voters, Voter Services. And what that means is for the past year, she has been running major campaigns to register people to vote. Over the last few weeks, she's been holding city supervisor candidate forums for local cities like Sebastopol, Cloverdale, blah, blah, blah. And she's also the lead on the committee analyzing and summarizing all the measures and propositions. So I know Leona personally, and let me tell you, she looks like an ordinary person, but she's a powerhouse. With all the pressure she's been under this year, I have never seen her be anything except calm, thoughtful, fair, completely competent, and totally hardworking. This woman is amazing. Now you know what I really think. And another of my heroes is Jim Masters, our other speaker, and he's with the Center for Community Futures, and they're involved in all kinds of forward-thinking things for civics. Many of you will remember Jim from last April when he did a presentation to the symposium on the significance and the mechanics of the 2020 census. And the League of Women Voters is not just for women. Jim is a very active member. And you know, Juanita had recommended that they change the name to the League of Engaged Voters, which I think really says it perfectly. Anyway, if you're looking for people out there who are making a difference during this election, Jim and Leona are two of the main ones. So now, Leona, I'm going to turn it over to you. And thank you for all that you're doing.
Well, that is quite an introduction. I hope I can live up to your expectations. Well, I thank Judy for inviting the League to do this presentation. And I have to also mention that Judy is a member of our voter service and a member of the local League of Women Voters. So she should give herself some credit on that score. As she mentioned, I am the chair of the Voter Service Committee. And Jim is also a League member, as was mentioned. Do you want to say a word or two before I go into my little spiel, Jim?
Keep going, Leona.
Keep going, okay. So I'd like to add a little bit to what Judy said about the League of Women Voters. This is our centennial year. It's been 100 years since women had the right to vote. And the League was formed in 1920. So we have two missions, which has stayed true over the last 100 years. The first is voter education through our pro and con sessions, which we are having one today, and through our candidate forums. Our mission is to engage voters and to inform them of the issues of the day. The other part that we do is advocacy, both on the national, state, and local level. The League does take positions to influence public policy. And locally, we have done a number of that. Some of the issues we've taken part in on housing, juvenile justice, transparency in government, and so on. We are a volunteer organization. We accept anyone over the age of 18, so I do encourage you to consider joining if you're not already a member. And many hands make light work. So I'd like to move into our current election. Your website has had a number of very important dates listed on around the election, as well as a lot of good links to reliable information. But I'd like to point out a couple of things. One of them is that the state has extended the number of days beyond which you can submit a vote by mail ballot. The Registrar of Voters will accept ballots up to November 20th, although they do have to be posted November 3rd. So I'm going to share a screen now. Let's see if we can do this without too much ado. And of course, I forgot to press this share screen thing, so let me do that. And then I have to do share computer sound. And then I have to do this, share. Okay, what's here? You all see that? Okay, so this is a screenshot of the Registrar of Voters, and they have all the resources you need to organize your vote. But one I particularly want to point out is
Leona, it looks blank.
Yeah, I'm just seeing a white screen. You might not have shared the right window.
Yeah, back out. This is it.
This is not it.
This is not it.
Can I get rid of this?
Stop share. There you go.
Okay, sorry about that.
Don't you love Zoom? I think it's amazing that we have all picked it up as much as we have.
Okay.
Considering this is a totally new technology as of what, just a few months ago?
Okay, now how do I, okay, so where's my share screen? Something went away here. Well, never mind. Share screen, I'll try one more time here. Share. All I'm getting is this white screen.
You're getting a whiteboard.
Well, forget it. What I was trying to show you was the Registrar of Voters website that showed all the different voting resources, including tracking your ballot. And that's not automatic. I want to remind people that if you want your ballot tracked, you do have to sign up for it. And I encourage everyone to do that.
We put the URLs for that on the Oakmont Sunday Symposium website.
Good, excellent. I would encourage everybody to do that. So, boy, if I don't get this to work here, I'm in trouble. Okay, share screen, Oakmont Symposium. What I'm seeing is just my own, forgive me for, we practiced this yesterday ad nauseum. And of course, it's not.
We're still seeing a white screen.
I know, I don't know quite what to.
Did you have what you wanted to show, was it fully opened? Or was it like
Yeah.
minimized down at the
No,
bottom?
it's
'Cause
fully open.
it's fully open. What was it you were going to show?
I have several slides for this symposium, so you can't see that. Is that right?
It's a blank screen.
Okay, I'm going to try one more time here. Select.
So stop the share.
Okay, stop share, stop share.
And then do the share screen. And you're sure that what you want to share is already fully opened
Oh, yeah.
on your computer.
There it
There
is.
you got it.
There it is.
Okay, thank you. So we've moved that. So anyway, share, this is the website. And this is a little thing about plan, make a vote, sign up, vote early if you can because of the slowed down potential for mail, and track it. So what we're going to talk about today, we're mainly going to focus on the local measures. There are 12 state ballot propositions, and there are 3 county-wide ballot measures that affect all of us, which is the reason why I decided to focus on that. And also we're going to have, so we're going to do proposition, Measure O, which is the county mental health sales tax, Measure P, which is the Evelyn Cheatham Iolero ordinance, Measure DD, Sonoma County Transportation Authority, and a small educational piece on sales tax in general. As I mentioned earlier, there are a number of city tax extensions on the ballot, so it seemed worthy to talk about that. And we're going to talk about state propositions. We're going to talk about Proposition 15, which is schools and communities, and Proposition 19, which are property tax revisions. And it's interesting to note that both of these ballot measures are a remake of the infamous or famous, depending on how you view it, Proposition 13 property tax that was passed in 1976. And if we have time, we'll go over Prop 22, which is the app-based driver proposition. And after our presentation, we'll kind of go over some good resources to learn more about, especially the state propositions, which we're not going to go over in any great detail. So Judy wanted me to ask everyone if you've had a chance to review the propositions. I don't know how you want to take that.
They're all muted, so they can't answer.
Okay, well, skip that idea.
You gotten the voter guide for the county propositions? I only received the voter guide for the statewide ones.
That's correct. I think, as I understand, you'll be getting the local voter guide. I think that's coming out in the next week. I think they start coming out October 5th, along with the sample ballot. Okay, so I'd like to move into the first local measure, which is going to be Measure O, mental health. So let's see if I have better luck on this one. Okay. Da-da. Share. Now we're back to this. Okay, I'm so sorry about this. Oh, I forgot to, hold on, I have to go back. Forgot to,
It's amazing. We can practice this till we're blue, and somehow when you're doing it, all the glitches.
yep, there's lots of glitches. Okay. Measure O, Sonoma County Mental Health Services Transaction and Use Tax Ordinance. Question: shall voters authorize an additional quarter-cent county sales tax for 10 years to provide local mental health and addiction services and facilities for children, adults, veterans, seniors, and those experiencing homelessness, including permanent supportive housing, crisis assessment, emergency psychiatric care. Background. Mental health services for certain vulnerable populations have historically been underfunded in Sonoma County. The situation has only gotten worse by budget cuts, increased homelessness, untreated mental illness, especially among veterans and those experiencing substance use issues. Law enforcement frequently must deal with psychiatric emergencies with limited options for inpatient psychiatric facilities. The current pandemic has only exacerbated these problems. Proposal. If Measure O is passed for a quarter-cent sales tax, it would provide approximately $25 million annually to provide extended mental and addiction treatments and other services to vulnerable populations. There would be an annual audit and citizen oversight. Funds would be spent on the following 5 categories of service. The expenditure plan 5 program categories. The biggest category, 44%, is emergency psychiatric crisis services. The second biggest chunk would be behavioral health facilities. It would also include outpatient services for mental health and substance use, and would fund a behavioral health homeless care coordinator and provide some additional support for transitional and permanent supportive housing. Plan for independent oversight. Supervisors will appoint a 7-member oversight committee. This committee will submit an annual report for public record. The committee will not have any decision-making authority over spending priorities. Fiscal impact. If Measure O passes, it will raise the Sonoma County sales from 0.25% to 0.50%, bringing the total combined county and state sales tax to 8.5%. This does not include any city tax. The minimum combined 2020 sales tax rate for Sonoma County in California is 8.25%. This is the total of state and county sales tax rates. The cap for state and local taxes were lifted through the legislation SB 152. What supporters say. Measure O will provide locally controlled funding to keep our community safe and healthy in the wake of the pandemic and beyond. It will ease the burden on emergency services and healthcare system by keeping those in need of mental health services out of jail. Those experiencing homelessness, including veterans who are dealing with mental health and substance use challenges, will have dedicated services for their needs, including inpatient psychiatric services. What supporters say continued. Measure O will invest in behavioral and mental health early intervention programs for local children traumatized by multiple disasters. It will help supplement many services to vulnerable populations, including, but not limited to, emergency psychiatric care, mental health crisis assessment, and suicide prevention. Strict accountability will keep funds in Sonoma County or from being used for other purposes. Supporters include these people. It is noted that all the Sonoma County supervisors voted unanimously to put this measure on the ballot. What opponents say. With pandemics and high unemployment, is this the right time to impose a new sales tax? Just as the road tax, library tax, fire tax, and parks tax before it, Measure O reminds us once again that the Board of Supervisors cannot live within its means. Tax money previously intended for those worthy purposes continues to be squandered on unsustainable pension plans. The cap for further local sales tax had to be lifted through legislation by Mike McGuire. Opponents include these people and agencies. Campaign finance. As of September, there are no donations recorded either in support or opposed to Measure O. Yes or no vote. This requires 2/3 of all those that vote in order to pass. A yes vote means Measure O will authorize the county to increase the sales tax rate from 1/4% on each dollar countywide to fund behavioral health science services described in the expenditure plan. A no vote on Measure O will prohibit the county from imposing the proposed sales tax. So at this point, we can take any comments or questions before we go into the next local measure.
I have a question, Marty Bear. How much, about how much money will this represent, at least in the first, few years? Do you have a sense of what the 1/4 cent means in money?
Let's see what that, I think it indicated on the, let's see, I lost my screen here.
It was approximately 25 million.
Thank you.
25 million per year in the first few years, is that?
Yes.
Let's see, it does not, sorry about this.
Yeah, one of your slides said approximately 25 million in the first year.
Yes, that's correct. I was trying to find the slide.
That's fine.
Yeah, 25 million annually to provide extended, so it's annual. Are there any other comments or questions? Okay, if not, we will move on to Proposition DD.
I thought we were doing P next.
Oh, P, right, okay, sorry.
Okay, Measure P
Is,
Evelyn Cheatham.
Leona, we have a raised hand.
yes, sorry.
Linda, you want to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Ask why does she think, why do you think, Leona, that there is such a quietness on both sides, no support for or against in dollars?
That's a very good question, and I'm not sure that I can answer it. I haven't even seen any letters to the editor, pro or con, except that the, forgot the organization that's kind of against all tax extensions
Right.
or increases. But that's a very good question. I have not seen, even the Press Democrat hasn't come out, pro or con, that I've seen. Been very quiet on this.
Yes. Hmm.
So are we ready to go on to,
He's been speculating.
We had a comment on the chat room about whether you intended to say the League of Women Voters positions on any of these.
it's a good question. Our board is meeting next week, actually, and our advocacy committee, I believe, has, they would agree to support all three of these countywide measures, but it has not yet been approved by our board. And so we'll know that shortly, but we don't know yet.
One more little question. What would the total tax in the city of Santa Rosa become with this quarter percent tax?
Well, currently and we'll get to that at the state when we talk about sales tax. The current Santa Rosa tax is, I think, 0.25%. There are two of them, and they will be combined if their measure passes. So that'll be 0.25% along with the 0.5% of county tax, and then the state tax. So it's 8.25 for the county and state, and then whatever's added on to the city.
So it'll be over 9% probably, won't it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, I just also have a comment. I just feel it's a shame that that they don't have separate propositions for some of the parts of this, because I agree with most of it, but I don't agree with all of it. So then what do? You know, it's difficult.
It is
I'd like to
difficult.
jump in here and just say with ballot measures, be careful. They are, as we've discovered with Proposition 13, hard to reverse sometimes. So unless you're comfortable with the ballot measure, I tend to, be very cautious about it. So it's ballot measures can only be reversed by other ballot measures generally. So be cautious with ballot measures.
And let me introduce you to Juanita Rowland. And Juanita has been a longtime member of the League of Women Voters. Raise your hand, Juanita, so they see you.
Here I am. And I'm sure that Leona will point you to some of the literature, but there's on the League site, there is quite a bit on just how to evaluate ballot measures. And that is one thing to keep under consideration is the legislature, or in this case, the SUPs, cannot amend things that the voters pass or not easily. So that's a reason to be cautious about passing things by ballot measure.
Okay, in the interest of moving on, Leona, you want to tackle the next one?
Yes. So we'll go on to Measure P, which is the Iolero one.
All right, so Jim Masters is going to talk about this one. It's called the Evelyn Cheatham Effective Iolero Ordinance. The Iolero stands for the Independent Office of Law Enforcement Review and Outreach. This was created by the County Board of Supervisors in the year 2015. Evelyn Cheatham was a longtime social justice advocate who was the chair of the Iolero board from 2017 to 2019, and she died in 2019. She had been advocating some of the changes that are included in this measure, and therefore they named the measure in honor of her. And now I'm going to play a, there we go. Where did it go? Here it is. And it should start.
Did you press your share video, the share sound?
I did. My blue wheel is turning.
Oh, okay.
This is the Sonoma County Measure P, which the full title is the Evelyn Cheatham Effective Iolero Ordinance. And the question is, should the voters repeal and replace the the original ordinance to strengthen and enhance the independent office of law enforcement review and outreach, which is commonly called IOLERO, and I'll refer to it from now on as that. So the background for this is in 2015, in response to the community reaction to the killing of 13-year-old Andy Lopez by a sheriff's deputy, the Board of Supervisors established the IOLERO to provide an independent review and audit of law enforcement investigations, including allegations of misconduct by the sheriff coroner personnel, and it basically provided for an alternative avenue for complaints against law enforcement, which was meant to increase transparency, outreach to the community, and the ability to propose policy recommendations to the sheriff. So subsequently, the death of George Floyd, which inspired protests throughout the country, caused the board to revisit law enforcement policies and procedures, and to the point where in August, the board voted unanimously to place this ordinance on the ballot as Measure P. So this measure would prescribe new qualifications and protections for the IOLERO director. And here's what it would require. I'll let you read that. And would add specificity to the complaints that IOLERO could review, to include all complaints that, there's a long list of how it would increase their capacity to review complaints. I'll let you read those. They continue on here. And most importantly, probably, it would also allow IOLERO to access and review all sources of investigative evidence and independently subpoena records for testimony. The fiscal impact of this, the county auditor's message states, this measure would set the annual budget of IOLERO at a minimum of 1% of the total annual budget of the sheriff coroner's office. So 1% of the sheriff's proposed budget for 2021 would be $1,942,405. The proposed budget for the IOLERO for 2021 is $797,703, which adds one person and is a 35.5% increase over the year before. On September 11, the Board of Supervisors adopted the 2021 budget with the promise of increasing the allotted amount to IOLERO to $1.4 million over 2 to 3 years. What that means to Measure P remains to be seen, and also the usual review of promises made, promises kept. So what supporters say: our communities and deputies deserve the most effective and responsive sheriff's office, and that best practices emphasize collaboration with communities and independent civilian oversight. This increases and supports accountability and transparency, and that increases trust between law enforcement and the community, and that this measure will guarantee IOLERO the resources it needs to do its work. So here's a long list of supporters, which I'll let you read. There's quite a number of them. And what opponents say is that we support independent oversight of the sheriff's office that is broad-based, community-wide, and legally compliant. But Measure P doesn't meet these requirements. It doesn't improve civilian oversight, and it creates more unnecessary red tape. and that right now, given the climate we're living in, fires, natural disaster, increased crime, we need help from law enforcement. Now is not the time to rush something to the ballot that makes it harder for them to do their jobs. There's more of what opponents say. They basically are implying that the shifting of monies by the Board of Supervisors will reduce the resources that the Sheriff's Department has to do its job. And that this measure violates state law by permanently divesting a portion of the county budget from the Board of Supervisors' authority in violation of the California Constitution. So here are the list of opponents. I'll let you read those. And in terms of campaign finance, the Registrar of Voters database of ballot contributions listed no data on either side. So a yes vote means you support replacing the original ordinance with the new proposals in Measure P, and a no vote means you reject the new proposals and its requirements and wish to retain the original ordinance as written in 2015.
I have mixed feelings about this.
If we're ready for questions, Jim, you ready to take questions?
I am ready.
Okay, well, let me tackle the first one. The relationship between the Board of Supervisors and the sheriff has been notably tense. Okay. What is the alternative that the sheriff has proposed? Do you know that?
I do not.
Okay.
Answer
Linda,
that question.
okay, well, no, that's the question. Linda had a question.
Yes. Hi, Jim. The does it have any real teeth? In other words, will the authority of Olero be enhanced from where it was? And the notion that the sheriff is against it speaks well for the proposition, I think.
My interpretation of this is that it would dramatically increase the authority of Olero, in effect giving them the same kinds of authority as a grand jury to subpoena information while investigations are underway, etc. As an additional response to that, I looked on the Olero website, and they had put forth a proposal for the sheriff's office and 20-some suggestions or recommendations about the use of force. And the sheriff had responded to that. For about 15 of them, the sheriff said, we're already doing that. For 3 or 4 of them, the sheriff's office said, that's not in state law, and if it's not in law, we're not going to do it. And for 3 or 4 of them, the sheriff's office said, well, if you wanted us to do this, how would you propose to deal with the circumstances that you're talking about if we followed your recommendation? So the sheriff has pushed back against the existing Olero office, and I think is concerned about the very open-ended nature of the mandate and the authority of the expanded Olero.
Thank you.
Okay, question from Marty Bear. Based on the 1.2 million being 1% of the sheriff's budget, does that actually mean that the sheriff's budget is 120 million?
The current amount of 797,000 proposed by the Board of Supervisors is based on the existing Olero. The Measure P proposes increasing the amount of money for Olero to 1% of the sheriff coroner budget. And the figures that I have seen is that the sheriff coroner budget is the expanded amount of, what is it, the sheriff's current budget is 1,942,405. And so 1% of that would increase the budget from 700,000 to 1,090,094. So there's a big increase that would result from the passage of Measure P to provide additional staff to carry out these additional duties. Did I explain that right?
I think so.
Okay.
Okay, other questions at this point? Okay, if I could ask the participants, the league has at least 3 more topics they'd like to cover. Sonoma County Proposition Double D, how sales taxes work, and then the 2 propositions in the statewide, 15 and 19, that are the ones that deal with changes, one would say, to Prop 13. Does anybody have a preference as to where we go from here, looking at the time? Okay, Juanita, you had a comment.
Explanatory.
I actually was going to ask a question about the last measure, but responding to this question, I would, my own preference, because all of this information is available in brochures and websites, on the league website as well, it might be more beneficial to go to the kind of summary things like the sales tax overview and the resources. That would just be my take on where we go from here, given our time.
Okay. Any other inputs? I've got one that says let's do the property tax Double D. And another on property tax. Okay, why don't we finish up with the local then, Leona? So let's tackle the property tax.
Okay, I'm going to do Measure DD next, and I'm going to share computer sound. I'm going to share it, and I'm going to slideshow from the beginning. Hello, my name is Jim Masters. I'm a member of the Sonoma County League of Women Voters, and I'm a volunteer working with the Voter Service Committee to bring you these pro and con forums. I'm going to be talking about Measure DD, the Sonoma. The question before voters is, shall voters extend the existing quarter-cent sales tax that was implemented in 2004 so that the Sonoma County Transportation Authority can implement the Go Sonoma Plan and Go Sonoma Act? The background. In 2004, voters passed Measure M, a quarter-cent sales tax. These funds were collected and managed by the Sonoma County Transportation Authority, which is 3 supervisors and 1 council member from each city or town. They oversee transportation projects throughout the county. This tax will expire in 2020. So the proposal, the Go Sonoma Act, under the authority of the SCTA, would repair potholes, make biking and walking safer, expand local bus service, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, improve evacuation routes. The tax would be extended for 20 years until 2045 at the current quarter-cent sales tax rate, and it would be dedicated to transportation and provide approximately $26 million annually. So this chart shows how the Go Sonoma Act would allocate the funds according to the plan that has been developed. 38% would go to smooth and maintain roads, doubling the amount available local funds. 27% would fund projects that move traffic and improve safety for vehicles, bicycles, and pedestrians. 23% would more than double the amount of local money going to bus service. And as one supporter of this measure said, even if you don't ride the buses, many of the people that make our economy function do. And 12% would more than triple the funding for bike and pedestrian projects. The fiscal impact. It would continue the existing quarter-cent sales tax for another 20 years. The estimates on projected sales starting in 2025 were that the tax would initially produce about $26 million annually. Administrative costs are limited to 1% of the actual proceeds. So the supporters say this would provide dedicated funding needed to repair our rural roads and city streets. It would build more bikeways and pathways throughout Sonoma County without raising taxes, but by extending an existing tax. It would be used to provide matching share for future projects. You may remember the voter-approved Measure M was used as matching share to fund work on Highway 101. DD would be used as matching share and direct funding for new projects. DD includes detailed plans on how the money will be spent, and there will be independent audits. No money will be reallocated by a city or county for other programs. Recent disasters excuse me, are a reminder of the importance of a strong transportation infrastructure. The measure will create local good-paying jobs, and the supporters say Measure DD is the best path forward to strengthen transportation infrastructure without any increase in taxes. And it's needed now because of the multi-year lead times in transportation planning. It typically takes 2, 3, 4 years to plan, get the approvals, and get the money for a project. So in order to continue transportation improvements after 2025, they need to start planning now, and they need the assurance that there will be funding available to do that. So the supporters include the Sonoma County Transportation and Land Use Coalition, the Sonoma County Bicycle Coalition, Operating Engineers Local 3, engineering contractors, Sonoma County Conservation Action, and Mr. Herman Hernandez, the trustee of the Sonoma County Board. The opponents say that due to COVID, the lost jobs, struggling farmers, and closed businesses during these uncertain times means we don't need more taxes. The pandemic and recession have caused record high unemployment. Tens of thousands of Sonoma County residents can barely pay monthly expenses. We should live within our means, and so should the county government. Their opposition is not targeted to just one tax. They oppose all of them. 2020 is clearly the wrong time to ask voters for more money. The opponents say that the new and extensions of taxes should only be considered when people are back at work and businesses have real. The opponents include the North Bay Leadership Council, the North Coast Builders Exchange, and the Sonoma County Farm. As of September 2020, there were no financial contributions supporting or opposing Measure DD. Thank you for your attention. A yes vote or a no vote. A yes vote on Measure DD will authorize the SCTA to extend the same quarter-cent existing tax through March 31. It requires 2/3 of those voting to pass. A no vote on Measure DD will prohibit the SCTA from extending the tax, and the existing tax would continue in effect only until March 2025. Goodbye. Okay, questions on DD?
Yeah, I'm Lynn and I have a question. My understanding is that we voted on almost identical measure 2 years ago and it was voted down. Am I correct about that?
I don't know the answer to that. Let me ask others from the League of Women Voters if they know the answer to that.
I'm not sure that I do. Wasn't that, I think, are you thinking of the SMART train?
Yes.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, this is not connected to the SMART
Yeah,
train.
this is a different.
Yeah, this is roads and streets and bicycle paths. Yeah.
I'm sorry, thank you.
If you go up on the SCTA website, there is a detailed plan about how the money would be allocated among the projects and among all the communities. in Sonoma County.
Jim, another question was why are we talking 20 years, not just 10? And has there actually been any review of the way the money was spent of the original approval?
I don't really know the answer to either one.
Okay.
The transportation planning is years to decades. A 10-year highway expansion is not an unusual kind of planning process just to get through the environmental reviews, et cetera. You know, they've been working on 101 ever since I moved to the Bay Area in 1980. So it just takes a long time to get major highways through the system, get the funding, and to get the work done. So it's not unusual for highways. It may be a little unusual for a bike path or a city street. For a highway, it is not unusual.
I'd like to add to that. I think, as Jim said, Highway 101 construction, and I think the last spending plan primarily went to 101 expansion. And it takes a lot of matching funds in order to make these things work on major state highways like this. So that's another reason why I think it takes a long time to put these funding together.
Okay, Linda has a question again. Linda?
No? I guess not.
Okay. Evelyn Howard.
I just have a quick comment as having been involved with library measures. They don't want to be coming back. Roads are going to need repair for a long time. And I know that they wouldn't want to be coming back every 10 years to, you know, for another measure. So that's why they tend to be for longer periods of time.
Okay. Juanita, you had another comment.
Yeah, I was back to the question about, did this happen before? I do remember some discussion a few years back, and maybe when the original measure was passed, that Sonoma County has a lot more roads than most people or most counties, and that part of the challenge is that they want to be able to do a real job on repairing, not just patch the potholes, which, you know, and to be more proactive. So that might be another reason for the long term on this is the need to, you know, not just put Band-Aids on, but really fix some of our roads.
Okay, was there someone else who had their hand up, Judy?
Not that I can see.
Okay, then Leona, why don't you move on?
So now the time is rapidly coming to an end. Shall I just do the you know, the understanding sales tax?
I think that would be great.
Yeah,
There was some
that'd be very helpful. Good.
Okay, yeah, since we've had this, you can see why I did this. Okay, so we'll do.
And then we'll ask folks if they want to continue on for 15 and maybe 19.
Okay.
I want to give a testimonial before Leona starts that when she started this inquiry, how many taxes are there in Sonoma County and for what purposes? This proved to be a challenging research project, and several of us pulled data for weeks to compile the report that Leona's about to give, and it's hard to follow. So I'm hoping Judy can make the PowerPoint available to you as well.
Okay, let me see here. Have I pressed all the right buttons here?
You need to share screen, combine with audio, and then select the correct window.
Let's try this. Does this work? Can you see it? Nope.
Okay, so go to the bottom, do share screen.
Well, I did that already. I'm going to start over again. Okay. Share screen. And share computer sound. Share.
There we go. And it's blank.
Keep getting the, it is up there.
Okay, Leona, yeah. Is it completely open? It can't be open and like minimized. It has to be completely open on your desktop before you select it. It's one of the little quirks in Zoom.
open. Here we go. Okay. Share screen, share. Okay, I think we're going to do it.
There we have it. Good.
Sorry for the delay. Sonoma County ballot measures. You hear that?
Yeah.
Okay. What's happening? Sonoma County ballot measures, understanding sales taxes. This is a general overview of sales tax, how they are collected and how they are distributed. Background. There are 6 cities in Sonoma County that have placed tax measures on the ballot this election. All but one city is asking voters to extend existing sales tax at the same rate. All but one of these measures can only be repealed by another ballot measure. Question: why are cities asking voters to extend sales taxes? City budgets have been adversely affected by the current pandemic, with resulting unemployment and loss of tax revenues. Some cities have had increased expenses related to the recent fire disasters. City councils see the need to stabilize their budgets through tax extensions. What are cities asking to be funded? Reasons listed in most ballot measures are to stabilize city finances, to support public safety, including police, fire, and emergency response, to maintain streets, parks, and open spaces, and to continue community services such as youth and teen programs. What other sales taxes do we pay? The California state sales tax is 6%. The Sonoma County sales tax is 0.25%. California law caps the total sales tax at 2% above state sales tax. In September 2018, the governor signed SB 152, which authorizes the County of Sonoma, its local jurisdictions, and the Sonoma County Transportation Authority to impose sales tax that would exceed the state limit of 2% by an additional 1%. So this chart shows what measures are on your ballot. On the left column are the cities that are putting ballot tax measures on the ballot. And the tax type is a type of sales tax. The amount includes the current tax rate that is charged. The current retail tax is a combined state and county tax along with the city tax. This column indicates when the current tax measure would normally expire. How do the sales taxes get distributed? All sales taxes are collected in the county and cities are sent to the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration. This agency distributes the tax revenues to the jurisdictions according to what the voters have approved. This includes the cities, the county, and special districts. This is a busy chart. This is from the California Department of Tax Collection. The first 5 columns are the county-wide special taxes, including SMART, library, parks, and other voter-approved measures. The next 9 items in the columns are the city taxes. The bottom row shows the potential legal tax extension possible. Components of the statewide 7.2 sales tax and use taxes. This is an interesting chart. I had wondered what the difference was between the 6% sales tax and the one listed here at 7.25%. All of the taxes that are collected by the state go to either the general fund or another fund that is controlled by the state. The last one on the bottom is 1.25. This goes to local counties and cities. So that explains the difference. What do supporters say about city tax on my ballot? Need to preserve critical funding during these challenging times. Need to upgrade and repair infrastructures, improve emergency communications. The need to continue to provide services to our youth, families, and seniors. No money is sent to Sacramento, that all stays local. There will be independent audits, and other funding options are very limited. This tax does not apply to food or prescriptions. This tax extension is not an increase. What do opponents say on my ballot? Most of these taxes do not expire. Santa Rosa is an exception. Now is not the time to continue taxes with soaring unemployment and lost businesses. Local governments need to tighten their belts and live within their means. Who are the supporters and opponents? Supporters. They are listed on your individual ballot measure. It varies according to the city, usually local elected officials and other agencies that serve the city. Opponents. All ballot measures listed include Sonoma County Taxpayers Association. And Daniel Drummond is the executive director. Check your ballot for more information about the tax measure affecting your city. One last word. Many of us have feelings about taxes, but this is a positive quote from our former president, Franklin D. Roosevelt. Taxes, after all, are dues that we pay for the privileges of membership in an organized society. I'm sorry about that low video. Audio. Could people hear that?
I just turned mine up.
Oh, I didn't have that up.
Let's move on to discussion.
Okay.
Okay. Question was asked, if a measure states is for a specific term, say 10 or 20 years, does that always require another vote? Or will the tax just end?
Well, the tax extensions that are being on the ballot do not expire unless voters put another measure on the ballot, except Santa Rosa. They have extended it to 10 years, after which it ends.
Okay. I'm going to make a side comment. There was a question asked about extending the conversation. Leona, Jim, are you all going to keep going for another 15 minutes if we can try and do that?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Okay. So other questions about this measure, about the discussion on sales taxes? Okay.
All people are thinking of their questions. I just want to add 2 layers of complexity. One is that Sonoma County, like 25 other of California's counties, is a self-help county that can impose additional taxes like DD and Measure M for transportation purposes. This qualifies them for some additional state money. So that's an additional type of tax. Further, Santa Rosa, Petaluma, and I think Sonoma are charter cities, which means they existed before California became a state. Therefore, they have additional authorities. About 1/4 of the major cities in California are charter cities. And so Leona showed you that terrific, gigantic chart that lists
a lot of detail
that we pay. And you can think about that chart in terms of self-help counties and charter cities as well.
Okay, before we go on, if anybody has to leave, links to virtually everything proposed, the statewide measures. We hope all the slides here are available on the Oakmont Sunday Symposium website. So
would it be helpful, Judy and George, if I showed a couple of slides right now of other resources, and then we can go on to the others
do it.
for people who need to leave early?
Do it.
Would that be useful? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. This won't take long. I do have to. This again, gotta share. The only problem is it takes me 5 minutes to do the.
Why don't you just give those other resources to me and I'll put them on our website.
Yeah, but they're basically, I wanted to give a heads up to the ballot measures that the California League is supporting, although I wasn't going to talk about them. And oh, one very important thing that I wanted to mention, you've all heard of David McQuan. He is putting on, he's the chair of the political science department at Sonoma State University. And he, along with the league, who we are co-sponsoring, is putting on a webinar on October the 12th about, it's a pro and con thing, primarily focusing on campaign financing and other money issues. So that would be an important one to go to. And I'm sorry, I can't get the thing up.
That's great. Yeah, David McEwen, that's a good one to look forward to. And before we lose too many people, I just want to remind everybody that next week, we're going to have Richard Hertz speak on election polling. Can you trust it? Is it good? And I was speaking with him earlier this week, and he's fascinating. I think you're really going to want to catch us next week too. So Leona, how do you want to proceed? What do most folks, do we want to go on to Props 15 and 19?
They are on our.
I'm seeing some people nod yes. Yes, I'm seeing a bunch of people nod yes. Okay.
Okay, so
why don't we just do the quick summary that's in the Voter's Edge, what is it called? The Easy Voter Guide that the league puts out.
I don't have a.
I have it open and I can.
Oh, okay.
Let's see. Can you see it?
Not yet.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so we're on Prop 15.
Okay. Can't really read that. The way it is now, land use for business and shopping centers are, boy, it's, I'm not sure that maybe we should just take questions. I'm not sure that I can really. Is there a way to highlight this?
Why don't you just summarize what Prop 15 is all about?
Yeah, basically it's because the property tax, a residential tax, when Prop 176 started, Prop 13 in 1976, residential and commercial property was taxed at roughly the same rate. Currently, residential property pays about 72% of all taxes, whereas commercial property at much less, because they are not, they don't turn over as frequently, and so they are not assessed at market value. So this particular proposition is going to change that. They are proposing that commercial property that is valued over $3 million or more would be assessed every 3 years at market value. There are certain notable exemptions. Agriculture, residential property would not be changed in any way. Agriculture, and there would be an exemption. I think it's $500,000 for small businesses as a write-off for their equipment and so forth. So the money, the revenues that would be collected from this increased property tax, commercial tax, would be divided up between schools and communities. So it's proposed that they would get between $6.5 and $11.5 billion more starting in 2025. So let's see, I can't go, I don't know who, can you scroll this forward to the,
To 19?
no, to, well, anyway, so that's Proposition 15 in a very small nutshell.
Let's run
Any
down to
comments,
19.
questions on that?
And then let's go to 19. Is
So
it big enough? Can you see the letters?
Yes, I can see it. This is Jim. I'm going to talk about this. So what this does is changes the ability of a family to transfer a residence between family members. And it expands the categories and generations who would be eligible for receiving the parents' or grandparents' property at its current level of assessment. Many counties, like Alameda County, provide that if you sell your home, you can move to another property and take your old property tax assessment with you if the home you buy is of the same value or lower value. And this adds in generational transfer of that property to children and grandchildren. There are a couple of little wrinkles in here that if the house that you buy, or you transfer this, if the assessed value, that the market value is more than $1 million above the assessed value, then it's going to go up. So the state says that it would increase some taxes and lower others. That would also facilitate the transfer of property within families. Farms are also accepted from this. But it's an effort to change the way property taxes are assessed and valued that was set under Prop 13 that has been changed in small ways since then.
And I might add that if this was passed, a property owner could do this up to 3 times. And it does, it's only available for people over age 55 and those with disabilities.
And one of the additional categories that it adds is people who lose their home in a disaster.
Yes, exactly.
Carry that property tax assessment with them to a new home.
Jim, can I ask a question just to make sure my head's in the right place? Sometimes if there is more than one proposition that deals with basically the same topic, then what happens is they become competitive. The one with the most votes becomes
Isn't
law.
that a great question?
And so the question is, are 15 and 19 considered competitive?
No.
I don't think they are.
One is aimed at residential property and the other is aimed at commercial property.
So to be clear, if both passed and more votes were cast for 19 than for 15, both would still pass.
Yes, different topics. On your more votes question, I lived in New York City for 10 years, and there, if you had competing propositions on the ballot, the one with the most votes prevailed. I do not know what California law is.
That is California law as well. We've had those before.
Okay, but again, these are not competing propositions.
Okay.
50 commercial property, 19 residential.
Okay, why don't we go into discussion? Anybody have questions about either one of these or any of the other propositions?
I have a comment. I thought it was very curious that the ACLU in their recommendations was in favor of Prop 15, but opposed to 19. And I think their rationale was they think commercial property should be exempted from Prop 13 in terms of 15. And in 19, they just felt there was too many additional loopholes to pass on the property tax benefits of 13, because there's already statewide law about being able, if you're in a fire zone or in other circumstances, to be able to pass it on once. Now this expands it to 3 times, adds some other categories, and they, in the end, just felt it was too broad an exemption from increased property taxes. So just want to mention that ACLU is yes on 15 and no on 19.
Interesting.
Do these require 2/3 or a simple majority on these?
I'm not sure. Let me see if this opponents say.
I think that's,
I think it's a simple majority.
it is a constitutional amendment. 19 is.
So is 15.
No, that's 15 is an initiative. It is an initiative constitutional amendment, but it was put on the ballot through citizen petition.
So come
Thought
on,
it had to be a new,
on this form, what's the constitutional amendment requirement in California? Is it half or 2/3?
it's majority, but the 2/3 I thought comes in for new taxes,
Revenue, right. So
specifically new taxes. And I think that's part of why we see so many extensions.
I think you're correct. That's mine, yes.
Okay, we're rolling out on time now. So
Okay.
anybody have any comments, questions?
Okay.
Okay.
Well, thank you. I thank
Okay. Well, big thank you to Leona and Jim for a wonderful talk. Thank you.
And next week, log in for Richard Hertz on election polling. Can we trust it?
Sounds interesting. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Al.
Leona and Jim, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm sorry for the
I
lies.
know that this was the culmination of hours of work for you. So thank you.
The screen sharing didn't work out as smoothly as I had hoped.
You know, that's the thing with Zoom. You can practice this for time and time, and then when you're actually doing it, it turns out differently.
It would be good if you could put on your website a plug for that thing with David McQueen. Is that how, McQueen?
McEwen.
McEwen?
Yeah,
I think the Oakmont people would find that very useful. It's October the 12th.
yeah. David speaks for the symposium too often, and he's also speaking for the World Affairs Council later this month.
Yeah, so he'd be worth.
And he's the one that recommended Richard Hertz for the election polling talk.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Well done.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Monique.